Hello everyone, I am Dr. Devashish Palkar and today I shall be discussing a very important drug, not only from practical but also from theory point of view. It is lithium. Now lithium is a very commonly routinely used drug in our OPD setting as well as in our indoor setting, and therefore we need to know every detail possible about lithium, especially if you are asked about this drug in your PG final exams. So Dr. John F. Cade, who was an Australian psychiatrist, for the first time in 1949 showed the usefulness of lithium in the treatment of mania. However, it took more than 20 years for lithium to receive US FDA approval for the use of acute mania, and it received the approval in 1970. Now, what are the times when we have to use lithium in cases of bipolar disorder? So generally, if a patient comes to us with a past history of good response to lithium, or if there is a classic euphoric mania, or if there is a first episode mania, generally with no precipitating factor, or a bipolar patient with suicidal ideation and with severe cyclothymia, then in those cases, lithium is considered to be a better or a superior drug. Now, once we decide that we want to start lithium, we need to know what are the investigations that we need to do before we start lithium. So it is recommended by various guidelines that we need to do renal function test, liver function test, thyroid function test, serum electrolytes, urine osmolality and 24-hour urine volume before we start the patient on lithium. However, Maudsley recommends that minimum 3, that is GFR, thyroid function test and serum calcium have to be done at the start and then every 6 months in a patient who is to be started on lithium. Alright. Once we start the patient on lithium, it is generally seen that the steady state plasma levels, they reach by 5 to 7 days. Once the steady state plasma levels have reached, we have to do serum lithium levels, and then after that we have to repeat serum lithium levels every 3 to 4 monthly. But if the patient is suffering from renal impairment or if the person is elderly, then we may need to do it even more frequently. Now, what are the contraindications to starting lithium? The first and foremost is to rule out pregnancy if a patient is a female in a reproductive age group with no clear-cut LMP known, or if there is a history of amenorrhea. First and foremost, get a UPT done. If UPT is positive, do not start the patient on lithium. Alright. Then a person with severe renal impairment, that time also we should not start lithium. And a person of sinus node dysfunction, that is also a contraindication to starting lithium. Now once we decide to start lithium and once we have ruled out the contraindications, then how do we start lithium? So generally lithium is started as 300 mg TID in a normal adult with normal renal functions, that is around 900 mg per day in divided doses. But if the person is elderly or if there is a renal impairment in the person, then generally we give him as 300 mg BD, that is 600 mg dose. Also, it is important to remember that lithium should not be started in children who are less than 12 years of age. In such patients, valproate is a better addition. Let us look at the plasma T-half of lithium. Now, plasma T-half of lithium is around 1.3 to 2.4 days and the elimination T-half is 18 to 24 hours. Now, why it is important to remember the T-half is because it takes a longer time for lithium to reach the steady state levels to cross the blood-brain barrier, and if the toxicity once develops, then it takes even more time for the toxicity to resolve, which is why we need to be even more cautious. And also, as we shall see further, lithium has a very narrow therapeutic index. So once a toxicity occurs, it takes a very long time to resolve. Now, what are the possible mechanism of action of lithium? Now it is very debatable topic because there is no one clear-cut mechanism of action of lithium which proves its efficacy in bipolar patients. But there are various theories and various studies that have been conducted about lithium and its effectiveness in bipolarity. So let us look at some of the possible mechanism of actions. So firstly, it has been believed that patients with bipolar disorder, they have increased levels of sodium and calcium intracellularly. Now lithium, by acting as an ion which is similar to sodium and potassium, it replaces the sodium and brings it down. Then lithium acts by second messenger system. So it exerts its beneficial effects via glycogen synthase kinase 3, CAMP response element binding proteins and sodium potassium ATPase pump related mechanism. It regulates circadian rhythm. Lithium inhibits inositol monophosphate, modulates G protein activity. And as I said, lithium, because it inhibits GSK3 and protein kinase C, it therefore reduces or inhibits the phosphorylation of tau proteins, and therefore it slows down the formation of plaques and neurofibrillary tangles, which is why it can be also useful in a patient of dementia. Lithium also has neuroprotective and neurogenesis promotion effect, which are also important in dementia as well as in bipolar illness. Now, an historical study which is important to be remembered in case of lithium is Tilak effect. Why it is important? Because it was done by eminent Indian psychiatrists Dr. Venkoba Rao and Dr. Parvati Devi in 1982, and there was an article published in the Indian Journal of Psychiatry back in 1982 which mentioned about this Tilak effect. Now, what is Tilak effect? It is the stimulatory response of the pineal gland to lithium. So they suggested that basically lithium acts on pineal gland and it regulates the pineal adrenocortical axis and also stimulates uptake of biogenic amines, inhibits stimulus-induced release of biogenic amines, and induces EEG synchronization and sleep. Basically, what they tried to show was that lithium and melatonin, they exert sort of similar response on pineal gland, and they regulate the circadian rhythm as well as the biogenic amines. Another important effect of lithium is on sleep, which we should remember. Lithium suppresses the REM sleep and increases the REM latency. Also, it increases the slow wave sleep. Now, what are the uses of lithium? We shall see the psychiatric uses of lithium first. So, as I said, it was approved for the use of acute episode mania by FDA in 1970. Also, lithium is used for prophylaxis of bipolar. Also for the augmentation of antidepressant. Remember the STAR-D trial? In the level 3, lithium was added as an augmentation agent, and currently also lithium, quetiapine, aripiprazole, these are believed to be the first line augmenting agents. We all know that after first and second trial of SSRI, there are 30 to 50% of the patients of depression who still do not respond. In such patients, if they have suicidal ideation as well, then lithium is a very valuable addition. Talking about suicide, we know that 15% of the patients of bipolar disorder, they end their lives by committing suicide. Committing is a very wrong word to be used. They end their lives by suicide. And lithium, it reduces the chances of attempted and completed suicide by almost 80%. So if there is one drug which is short reduces the chances of suicide, then it is lithium. Also, lithium can be used as a prophylaxis of unipolar depression for patients with more than 2 episodes. If they were severe enough and if there was suicidal ideation present in those episodes, then lithium is a very valuable addition. Important to remember about the serum levels of lithium. Now, there is some controversy because the levels that have been mentioned in CTP synopsis and Maudsley, they are somewhat different, but we will look at both. Now, what does CTP or synopsis mention? That in acute mania, the levels that we need to maintain are around 1 to 1.5 milli equivalent per liter. Either you can say it milli equivalent per liter or millimole per liter, it's one and the same. But ideally, synopsis mentions that ideally it should be less than 1.2 milli equivalent per liter. And in the maintenance phase of the bipolar, it should be 0.4 to 0.8, but it is best if it is kept between 0.8 to 1 milli equivalent per liter. Now, what does Maudsley mention? Maudsley mentions that the minimum effective plasma levels of lithium is 0.4 millimole per liter, with the optimal range being 0.6 to 1.2 millimole per liter. And it additionally also mentions that doses more than 0.75 millimole per liter are only useful for the acute management of manic symptoms. Alright, so this is an important thing that we need to remember. Also, when we talk about serum lithium levels, we need to know that lithium has a very narrow therapeutic index, so that its toxic effects start from 1.5 milliequivalent per liter, which is also its effective dose range. Right? So, what are the signs and symptoms of lithium toxicity? It can be divided as mild, moderate, and severe. You can classify it as 1.5 to 2 can be mild to moderate symptoms, 2 to 2.5 milliequivalent per liter can be moderate to severe, and more than 2.5 milliequivalent per liter can be severe lithium intoxication. Now, this is from synopsis itself. So, in the mild to moderate intoxication, we see that GI symptoms in the form of vomiting, anorexia, dryness of mouth, these can be there. In cases of neurological disorder, neurological signs and symptoms of the mild to moderate toxicity, it can be ataxias, dizziness, slurring of speech, nystagmus, and even lethargy or muscle weakness. When it comes to moderate or severe intoxication, that is lithium levels in 2 to 2.5 milliequivalent range, then GI symptoms include anorexia, persistent nausea, vomiting. Neurological side effects can be blurred vision, muscle fasciculations, hyperactive deep tendon reflexes, chorioathetoid movements, convulsions, delirium. Finally, it can lead up to syncope, coma, and even it can lead to circulatory failure and death. In case of severe lithium intoxication, there is generalized convulsions, also there is oliguria, renal failure, and finally it can lead to death. So what do we need to do? How do we manage lithium toxicity? First and foremost, if you are suspecting lithium toxicity, check the lithium levels and refer to the emergency care physician. Once the emergency care physician starts the intervention, a thorough neurological examination has to be done, because we all saw the neurological side effects of lithium. They are very severe. It can lead to convulsions, it can lead to delirium, syncope, and it can even lead to death. So the neurological examination has to be complete. Then we need to check the lithium levels. We need to check the renal function tests, and we need to do a baseline ECG level as well. Also, if needed, we can do emesis and gastric lavage with the help of activated charcoal or polyethylene glycol. Also, if the lithium levels are more than 4 milliequivalent per liter, then we should do hemodialysis. This is mentioned in synopsis. However, Maudsley mentions that if the lithium levels are more than 3 milliequivalent per liter, then it is an indication for dialysis. Now, one tablet of lithium carbonate that is routinely given of 400 milligram, it contains around 10.8 millimole 10.8 millimole lithium per tablet. That needs to be remembered for the Viva point of view. Now let us look at the adverse effects of lithium. Remember, what we saw earlier was the toxic effects of lithium. They develop in the dose range exceeding 1.5 milliequivalent per liter. But these are the adverse effects of lithium which develop in the therapeutic range. So we can remember them systematically. So if we look at first system, if you are ingesting a tablet, then let us look at the GI system first. So what can be the gastrointestinal side effects of lithium? It can be appetite loss, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Then dermatological side effects, for example, acne, hair loss, psoriasis, rash. Then the famous side effects of lithium on thyroid, that is the endocrinal system. So hypothyroidism can occur. Now it has been shown that hypothyroidism occurs in 7 to 10% of the patients on lithium. Female patients 14% and males 4%. However, abnormal TSH is found in 30 to 50% of the patients. Remember, just having abnormal TSH does not classify it as hypothyroidism clinically. We need to evaluate the symptoms and correlate clinically. Alright. Another important side effect is on parathyroid. So hyperparathyroidism can occur, which is why we need to monitor serum calcium levels as well when we are starting the patient on lithium. Then the cardiovascular side effects include benign T-wave changes and sinus node dysfunction, which is why a patient of sick sinus syndrome is a contraindication to starting lithium. The neurological side effects can be benign, non-toxic, like dysphoria, lack of spontaneity, slowed reaction time, memory difficulties. Also, there can be tremors. It is important to remember that the adverse effect of lithium are generally fine tremors, whereas in cases of toxicity, there will be coarse tremors. Alright. So toxicity includes coarse tremors, dysarthria, ataxia, seizures, coma, and death. Also, another miscellaneous side effect can be like peripheral neuropathy. If you look at another miscellaneous side effects, then weight gain is a very important side effect, which is seen with many of the psychotropic agents, and lithium is no exception to that. Lithium also leads to weight gain. So what are the possible mechanisms for lithium-induced weight gain? One is lithium directly impairs the carbohydrate metabolism. Then lithium leads to hypothyroidism, which can also lead to weight gain. Lithium leads to edema due to water retention, which can also lead to weight gain. And also because of polydipsia, it leads to increased consumption of sugary fluids. So this all can be seen. Now, another important Viva question that can be asked is, if hypothyroidism develops after starting lithium, is it an indication to discontinue lithium? Then the answer is no. Why? We need to just treat it with levothyroxine. But there are 3 scenarios that are very important to be remembered. If TSH levels after starting lithium are in the range of 5 to 10 with no symptoms suggestive of hypothyroidism, then don't start thyroxine. Just keep on monitoring the serum TSH levels monthly. If TSH levels are between 5 to 10 and there are symptoms of hypothyroidism present as well, then we need to initiate the thyroxine treatment. And if TSH levels are more than 10, then irrespective of the symptoms, you have to initiate the thyroxine treatment. Last but not the least, I would like to talk about mood stabilizers in pregnancy. So generally, it is a rule that we need to avoid lithium, carbamazepine and valproate, especially in the first trimester when the organogenesis is happening, because these are all teratogenic agents. So if there is a female patient of bipolar disorder already on lithium, or you're planning to start on lithium, then planned pregnancy is very important. Your patients have to be given a choice and they have to make a decision regarding which option they want to prefer, whether they want to prefer these mood stabilizers or whether they want to go to second generation antipsychotics. Now, The best choice drug in pregnancy is first and second generation antipsychotics, and it has been mentioned in Maudsley as well. Haloperidol as well as olanzapine, they are equally efficacious. Alright. Now, lithium can lead to Epstein's anomaly, so it is very important to rule it out. Epstein's anomaly basically involves tricuspid valve defect, and 1 out of 1,000 fetuses exposed to lithium, they develop Epstein's anomaly. Also, the overall teratogenicity rates with lithium are 4 to 12%, and in normal pregnancy it is 2 to 3%. And in valproate and carbamazepine, there are also it increases the chances of neural tube defect. In valproate it is 1 to 4%. In carbamazepine, the serious side effects can be up to 8%. Now, what are the signs of lithium toxicity in infants? It could be lethargy, cyanosis, and abnormal hepatomegaly. So these are the signs and symptoms of lithium toxicity that can be seen. Another important aspect that can be asked in Viva is about psychoeducation regarding lithium. So whenever we are starting a patient on lithium, we need to psychoeducate the patient about the effects of lithium, about the side effects of lithium, and what precautions he needs to take. So the most important ones I'll just try to highlight. Patient has to ensure that he does not suffer from dehydration. So if he is doing exercise or if he is working in an environment where he is sweating a lot, then he needs to be mindful of his water intake, fluid intake, and also the level of salts that he is taking. If there is dehydration, if there is low sodium diet, then it can lead to increased chances of toxicity. Also, important to remember are the drug interactions of lithium, mainly the diuretics, NSAIDs and tetracyclines. These all can increase the lithium levels and it can lead to toxicity. Also, in a patient of renal impairment, if there is no clearance of lithium, then also it can lead to increased chances of toxicity. Similarly, with elderly patients with comorbidities. Now, what to do if you miss one dose of lithium? Now, if you miss one dose of lithium, then take it as soon as possible. If it is within 4 hours of the next dose, skip the missed dose. Alright. If between the two doses there is just 4 hours gap, then you need to skip that dose and then you need to take the next dose. No need to double up the doses. Very important thing to remember. And also, if you are taking lithium, then you should take at least 2 to 3 liters of water. And whenever you are starting any other medication from a physician, inform that you are already on lithium, especially if you are a patient of hypertension, because there are various diuretics, ACE inhibitors, ARBs who have a side effect which leads to increased lithium levels, and it can lead to toxicity as well. Now, another important thing to be remembered is once you start a patient of bipolar disorder on lithium, then the plan should be to continue lithium for at least 3 to 5 years. It has been written in Maudsley that if you abruptly discontinue lithium or if you give lithium for a shorter amount of time, then it can increase the episodes of bipolarity further, and also the response to lithium will be less when you discontinue it and then restart it. So it is very important, right? And finally, about the important drug-drug interactions of lithium. So ACE inhibitors, thiazide diuretics, NSAIDs, these all can increase the lithium levels and can lead to toxicity. Also, carbamazepine and SSRIs, they can cause hyponatremia, and again it increases the chances of lithium toxicity. If you have to give one diuretic with lithium, then loop diuretics are considered generally to be safer. And finally, what are the non-psychiatric uses of lithium? It can be used for gout. Historically rather, it was used for gout, epilepsy. It can be used in headaches, movement disorders, aplastic anemias, chemotherapy induced neutropenia, because lithium increases the levels of leukocytes, SIADH, herpes, eczematic dermatitis, cystic fibrosis, and cyclical vomiting. So these are all the uses of lithium which we need to remember. I hope you liked this presentation. Please give your feedback in the comment section, and please, if you liked it, then subscribe to my channel. I shall be producing many more videos which will be helpful to you, and please share this video with your friends and colleagues. Thank you very much. This is Devashish signing off.